Okay. Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the Independent Producers Organization live showcase. We have a very special guest. She just got through with a showing in San Francisco. So, Jane Turville, writer, producer, director, really getting into stuff, kind of like us too. Right. So
It's the only way to go, Richard. It's
That's
the only
right.
way to go.
That's right.
Go big or go home.
So anyway, did you want to talk a little bit about yourself first, or go into it? Either way.
Sure, I can talk a little bit. Well, first of all, thank you for having me on the show.
Right,
I
okay.
really appreciate it. It's been a while. I think I
That's
was
right.
here
We were here once.
before. I think it was like 2013, and it was
Really?
just when I had started my new film series project called The People Factor.
Okay.
And I started working on it in 2012. I'm still working on it.
Oh.
And what the People Factor is, it's basically exploring how population growth impacts humans on a deeper psychological level. Because what I've found as I've been working, I was very naive when I started and thought overpopulation, that should be fairly easy to work on.
Right.
Wrong. And so what I have found is that so many of the discussions around population growth tend to be on resources, tend to be things that you can then turn and have an argument of, well, we can fix that. We can grow more food. We can create water out of salt water. We can fix these things. And as human beings, as the human species, we can. We can adapt where other species can't. But we're still human inside of us, in our minds and in our hearts. We haven't really progressed, as E.O. Wilson said, we haven't really progressed that far from the folks that were living in caves and hunting woolly mammoths, as far as how our psychological makeup is.
Yeah. E.O. Wilson. Yes, I've seen his lines.
Yeah, he's one of my heroes. And so, in the journey I've taken to try and figure out, well, how do you talk about population growth, and then how do you have other people feel comfortable in talking about it? I've gone kind of a circuitous path. I started out, I'm kind of a sustainability geek. And that's what most of my work is about, environmental sustainability. But I've found that environmentalists really don't want to address overpopulation.
That's right.
They step back from it and say no. But where I did find a home, and I found this about 2.5 years ago, was in the world of psychology. And psychologists really understand that there's so many things that impact us as human beings. And it doesn't matter where you're from. It doesn't matter who you are. We all share these things. And so that's what I decided to look at, is how do we, as human beings, it's important how we spend our time. Well, if there's so many people around and the competition for jobs and for how we can spend our time limits us or keeps us from fulfilling how we want to spend our time, that's impactful to us. And that can send us into, that has health repercussions, mental health repercussions, and just doesn't let us as humans live fully. And when I say this, I am talking about every human being on this planet. I am not talking about specific groups. And I want to be really clear about that, because one of the things that I run into constantly is, if you are talking about overpopulation, you don't like people. That's the furthest thing from the truth. I adore people. They're interesting and wonderful and creative and frustrating and beautiful, and they are all of these things. But it has to be for everyone. It cannot be just for industrialized nations. It cannot be just for this group or that group. It has to be for everyone. And when you start to look at how do you make it equitable and applicable to everyone, you realize that when you get enough people, it's no longer, that doesn't work anymore. You fall off the cliff with it. And each community, each place has a tipping point. For instance, if you were to go to New York City, and 3/4 or half of the population was gone, that would feel really weird. That would not be that would not be what that place is. However, here in Portland, I've lived here for 30 years, and I can tell you, I can't believe the traffic now. I can't believe the number of new apartment buildings going up. I can't believe the amount of gentrification happening in our city, in a city that is a beautiful city. And so this is what I'm studying, is how it works with our minds and our hearts, and how we can have this for everyone. And so I was honored to this year to participate with this poster in the American Psychological Association's conference, international conference, and it was wonderful. There were people from all over the world there. Wonderful discussions, and you know, it was really rewarding to have people finally kind of come forth and say, hey, yeah, what you're doing here is important. You're on a right track. And so that was a big relief, actually.
That's a huge addiction.
Yeah, and so yeah, I can talk about what the poster is, because that is actually a segment of my my film. And so if you'd like me to do that, or if you have questions, I'm happy to.
You know, as a I'm thinking about the word psychology, right?
Yes.
When I think about it from a layman's standpoint, from the masses standpoint, because a lot of times we were speaking to the masses,
Yeah.
who maybe are not as educated in many ways.
Okay, sure.
And if you could break that down from the standpoint of how does that talk to, if you will, that particular group.
Gotcha.
See what I'm saying?
Gotcha.
You know what I mean?
Well, I think, again, this is the wonderful thing about being human. We share these threads. And so I think everyone, whether you are the most academically sound person or someone who is not as educated, a child, an older person, a person from the Congo, a person from the Philippines, a person from England, a person from Portland, we all share, we all understand, I think, how I spend my time is important to me. And it helps me to answer those two important questions: who am I, and how do I fit in? And so let's take, for example, ageism, which we have a lot of here in America. When someone retires, there's a certain, I won't say stigma, but there's a certain, oh, you're different now. You are not doing this work that you were doing, you're different. And for some people, that's perfectly okay, but for other people, that really, for lack of a better expression, messes up how they see themselves and how they understand who they are and how they fit in. And that's really what the base that I'm taking for this whole study is letting people see, who am I and how do I fit in, and then how does a growing population impact, sometimes for better, sometimes, many times for worse, my ability to answer those questions based on my own needs, my own desires, and how I see myself fitting in. So, you know, going back to a person who has retired, and all of a sudden they may not be invited to some things, and that's, how do I fit in? What happened? And how do I remake myself? Now, human beings are great at remaking themselves, and we all, over the course of our lifetime, answer those two questions differently, because we change. But the impact when you're not ready to do that, when you are ready to make that change internally, that's good. That's healthy. But when it's forced upon you, how do you deal with that? And we see in many countries where there are older populations, a lot of older populations with also a focus on work and what you do for a living. We see depression, we see addiction, and we see suicide among our older adults. And I believe it is because, with a growing population, those people are maybe removed from the thing they love to do with their time prematurely. Now, I will tell you an interesting fact that my friend Lisa Hollis Sawyer, Dr. Lisa Hollis Sawyer, who presented this with me in San Francisco, she is a specialist on aging, and she told me, what do you think that the official age that the federal government lists as a senior in America? What do you think that age is?
Gee, I think today, based on how we are today in our society, I mean, you can basically be forced in that arena even at an early age.
Yeah.
And I'm saying that ordinarily you would think when we was coming up, so to speak, it was kind of like 65, and then after a bit, because I wasn't a senior as of yet, but then all of a sudden I got to be 65. Looked like it's bumped up a bit. And then in fact, all of a sudden it's like, now you're gonna go to the reservation. I'm just using a term. You just pushed out.
Exactly.
And I've got all these skills. I've got these skills, and there's no, and they need my skills.
Yes.
But yet and still, I can't go and qualify for the job. I'm too old. Then new nomenclatures come out, like baby boomers and things of that nature. And if I got enough money, I could spend a little bit more time before I get to that point where I have to deal with it.
And
You know what I mean? But once I run the money, when the money is gone, then guess what? That's a crisis.
Right, and that's the thing, is that with if you have a population that's stable, people can continue to stay at the thing that they love for as long as they're willing and capable of doing that.
But not many.
So, well,
Nowadays,
yeah.
I'm just saying, it's the money-driven thing right now.
Well, it's
Yeah, I
money-driven,
think-
but it's also we are a very youth-centered culture.
Yeah.
We are a
Yeah.
very, and I will say that the official age, 47. And
47.
Yeah,
I
and
can see
that
it.
was
I can
that
see
was
it.
written in the 20s. It's never changed.
I could see it. I could
Yeah,
see it.
and
I
so
can see it.
so that's just one example, and that's what I'm exploring,
Wow.
because I think that we need to. This is how I think we need to talk about overpopulation,
Wow.
because it's not about not liking children. It's not about not liking people. It's not about any kind of racism. And one of the issues that I've faced is that there are some people out there who use overpopulation as a way to express racist views. And I fight it every single time I go out and talk about overpopulation. And my mantra, my goal is to have people realize, if everyone is going to have these opportunities, I don't care where they're from, I don't care what their color of their skin is, their gender, I don't care. If everyone's going to have that, we cannot keep producing new people. We just can't do it. And we've got to take care of who's here and be able to give opportunity to the ones who are born. Wherever they're born and whoever they are. I don't care.
But what about your experience from the standpoint of, okay, we all have to eat.
We all have to eat. This is true.
Doing that
And many
first-
of us enjoy it
that's
very
right.
much.
You got to eat, and then all of a sudden you're not eating anymore. If not that, you've got more in your storage bin than the next door neighbor. And then all of a sudden, I'm seeing a person over here. I'm walking. I'm doing something, or I own a business or whatever. But I'm just visiting. I'm just going down and visiting, whatever. And I see someone that's destitute or homeless on the streets or whatever. And I said, well, gee whiz, I want to do something about that. That person, it's really a sad situation. And then that's the problem that I see, because a lot of times they tend to want to impose. I want to do something, but they're not thinking about the neighbor next door. Who's still
Not
trying
that
to
easy.
strive. It's not that easy, see? And so a lot of times their imposition to the solution of it impacts the neighbor next door, like
Right.
we're having right now. We need more housing and this, that, and the other. But no one talks about the fact that, well, hey, look here, we may get more housing, but there's going to be a rent attached to it.
And it's
And the
going to
neighbor
cost
next
money
door
to build them.
and then the person who has to pay for it tax-wise is the neighbor next door.
Yes.
And the neighbor next door gets thrown out of the situation.
Gentrification.
You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
So, and I don't think we talk enough about it,
Yeah.
about that, to educate. And that's why I'm liking what you're
Yeah.
saying. And the other point out before I forget is that when you said 46, I started thinking about it. I said, well, that's true. And then I started thinking about when they start coming up with the different classifications, millennial, and I don't even know, a lot of times I don't know what they're even talking about, millennium, millennial. I mean, that just came out.
Yeah.
As opposed to saying, well, I'm a senior citizen now. Now we've got this whole new deal.
Yeah. Every generation, it's like every 10
Right.
years there's a new
Right.
name for that generation.
Right. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I don't think we do enough about educating in our educational system.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
We don't
Yeah.
spend enough time educating that population, because no one thinks about being old, getting to the point where they're going to be old.
Not when they're 16.
That when
No.
they're 16, no one talks about the fact that once a person gets sick at an age factor aspect of it, there's nothing about hospitals and cancer and things of that nature. I'll never get there.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So there's no preparation to be able to
Yeah.
deal with that issue
Right.
and make it still human.
Right. Right. And I think
I'm sorry.
No, I think you've brought up a really interesting point, and it's again one of the things that I've run into as I'm doing this project is our tendency to label and classify each other as different than ourselves. So that's a young person over there. Oh, they must think this way. So therefore, and we allow those labels and those classifications to determine how we connect with each other. And we've lost that ability. I go back, I grew up on a farm outside of Salem. And my dad and one of our neighbors, Bob Muller, fought like cats and dogs. They did not get along, couldn't agree on anything. But anytime we needed help, the first one there was Bob.
That's right. Yeah.
Anytime he needed help, all he had to do was pick up the phone, and we would, the whole family.
That's right.
I mean, the whole
That's right.
family.
That's right. That's the way it was. Yeah.
And so we've lost that, and I think technology has a lot to do with that. But I think it's our responsibility as humans to make sure that we don't do that. That we don't say, okay, now you're a senior citizen, now you're not working, you are now different. Because the psychological impact of that, while it may not, you may say, oh, well, that person will get over it. That's easier said than done. And I'm liking that, at least in the work that I do at Ecumenical Ministries of Oregon, which is my day job, I see a lot of trauma-informed care and a lot of people beginning to understand trauma. And, all of this starts to get us to think systematically, and rather than in silos, we understand systematic thinking, and we can pull population growth and overpopulation into that in a very natural way without being frightened. Now, when I was down in San Francisco, I saw this great film. It's called A Dangerous Idea. And it's on, and I cannot say this word right, but it's on eugenics. It's basically on the whole, and I'm sorry, I don't remember. I'm terrible with names. But it's basically on sterilization of people who, and all of that stuff. And so if that is the background that Americans have on population, No wonder no one wants to talk about it, and that's not what we're talking about. So I was so excited to see that film because it allowed me to understand and see through the eyes of someone who would say, I don't want, because that's a repugnant thing, and it isn't what we're talking about. But we do have to talk about the ability of everyone's needs to be met. And when you have too many people, what happens is we have the 1%ers, we have the people with the money, and then
the decision makers.
And then we have people at all levels below that just aren't having their needs met. And so we get into the situation we are in America today, where you voted this way, I won't talk to you. You voted that way, I won't talk to you. You know, and it's dangerous. Gentlemen, it's dangerous
Yes, it is.
for us.
Yes, it is.
And
Yes, it is.
so, yeah. I'm happy to talk about
no,
this
good.
a little bit, or I'm enjoying this conversation
this
too.
Well, you know, it's funny. Overpopulation. You say nobody wants to talk about it. They really. Politicians don't want to hear anything about.
No.
That's a big stumbling block. They're the ones that control all the money, everything. They don't want to talk about it. And I don't know how to get past that. We just have to keep working.
Yeah, you know, I think in the case of population growth and overpopulation, I think, first of all, other countries in the world totally get it. And they will talk about it. So we can learn from them, and we should learn from them. But I think in the instances, especially, and I look also at Germany, in industrialized nations, I think that the politicians are probably going to follow. I think it's going to be social.
That's right, if you do that.
And I think that, you know, again, we have to get people over the fear of talking about it, understanding that human beings have needs, and at some point when there are too many people, and take consumerism, so consumption, you know, we have so much in this country, and if we say our goal is to have everyone that's here at a certain standard of living, we will use up the resources of this earth in no time flat. So the problem at that point is a combination of wanting to have people all be at a certain standard, everyone, and again, I go back, it's everyone we're talking about, not specific groups. If everyone's going to be there, then we've got to lower our consumption. And as Americans, we don't want to do that. As American business, we don't want to do that, because we are built on that. If I make a trinket, you've got to buy it, and then you'll have money to buy this trinket, and it goes and it goes and it goes. So there's these larger societal patterns, and I think if we can work towards educating, getting people comfortable, thinking about change, that change can happen, but it's going to be generational. And I think, unfortunately, human beings, wherever we are in the world, only seem to learn our lesson when there's something catastrophic that happens. And I would love to see that we don't have something catastrophic happen, like an incurable outbreak of some sort of health issue, or you know, what we're seeing in Syria with the war, and what we see in oh dear, with the pushing away of the Muslim communities, and you know, this kind of thing. You know, again, it's dangerous. It's dangerous.
Well, medication is a good example.
Yeah.
In this country.
Yes. Yes.
I mean, you know, all of a sudden you can buy medication over here. Let's say Mexico, for say 50 cents a pill, and over here it's going to cost you $5 a pill.
Yeah. Yep.
And if you don't have the money, you die.
Right.
I mean, there's nothing to offset that.
And if you do have the money, you can make it to Mexico to get the 5 cents.
That's right. You get the 5 cents. Or better yet, you buy a bulk there and you come and sell them.
Oh, You're a businessman.
I went to school here. We both went to school.
Oh,
See,
dear.
See, it's a,
Yeah.
no, and I guess the other point I was making is I was listening to you saying, because we're all trying to, especially during this time now, within our country, this political access that we have today.
Right.
I mean, I'm feeling that we're talking about change.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's not about Republicans or Democrats. We're
No,
talking about
no.
change.
Right.
And we've got the right characters. And we got one character. Sometimes it's a little gee whiz. We got this guy named Trump, you know, and he's an outsider. We give him any kind of name, whatever. But the bottom line is that he's got people talking to change.
Right. Right.
You
Yes.
see, and but people are trying to run away from it by basically saying, "Well, look what he did here in the past, and this, that, and the other." Well, wait a minute. I mean, you already knew what he did in the past. I mean, why did you elect him?
Yeah,
See, so
I
the real thing is those people who are even objecting, endorse or if not that, voted for change.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. No, and
Did you see where I'm kind of coming from with that?
and below that
Yeah.
is this idea that needs just were not being met,
Yeah, yeah.
and people started to feel left out.
Yes.
And you know, again, when take coal.
Yeah.
Coal, we do need to move away from it. It's an environmental disaster, especially if everyone, if equity steps in and everyone has coal and uses coal. So, so that is taken away, and what you have are you have, and I can understand why people would feel this way. Who am I, and how do I fit in?
Yeah.
Because for all of the generations of my family that I can remember, we were coal miners. And to sit back and say, you're just going to have to change
Can't
is
eat.
not, yeah. Well,
I
it's,
can't feed my family. As a male, I can't,
Right.
you know, I'm not the matriarch of my family, you know what I mean? I'm not
Right.
somebody. I'm
Right.
not anybody today.
well, see, again, it goes back to, you know, how do I feel, how am I answering those questions? And so there wasn't anything that came in and said, hey, we know, we understand the trauma that you are facing.
Yeah. But
And you know, we do have to change this because basically it will poison you and everyone else.
so how do I do that? You know, how do I still maintain my family?
Right.
I mean, I'm at an age factor. I'm being thrown out because of the age deal, 45, 46. I can't apply for a job
Right.
to feed my family. I can't pay. I
Right.
can't pay for my household.
Right.
I mean, I'm being taxed out of it and this, that, and the other.
Yes.
And I'll tell you something that came back to me along that line, and that's why I've always figured the whole issue of race. Right after doing that Revolutionary War, i.e., the Civil War aspect of it, it was about the cotton gin.
Yeah.
It was about labor.
Yeah.
In the South, they said, I got the labor force picking cotton, just human. And over here, there was a mechanism aspect of it, and there was change. And no
Right.
one, and so basically, these folks were saying, "Hey, wait a minute,
Right.
what about me?
Right.
I mean, where do I fit now?" And you know, so I'm going to have a wall. You know what I'm saying? Because we want to keep it just the way it is. And so and then we sort of attached this thing about race, and it was change, and we never talked about it in that aspect of it, because between then and now, you would think, well, gee whiz, that should have been gone, because we were all together fighting in the revolution. But yet we're still talking about this black and white thing. That wasn't the case. It was change.
Yeah.
But there was nobody there to.
And, yeah, and you see change
Yeah.
is the thing that comes along and says, uh-oh, I have to redefine myself.
yeah.
And that's again, it does not matter where you are
Yeah,
on this
yeah,
planet. If you are a human being, you experience this. And, you know, we go to gentrification that happens. People that have lived in neighborhoods for a very long time.
And that's everybody. That's not just a particular neighborhood.
No.
Those are all, you don't hear about it.
Right.
You may see them on the streets now,
Yeah.
in the homeless situation.
Yes. Yes.
Or if not
Yeah.
that, they're packing out. You don't know, and everybody's got sort of respect, trying to find a place to live and stuff like that.
Well,
Yeah.
couch surfing. They're couch surfing.
Yeah.
They're living in motels.
And it's
Yeah.
happening. That's real.
Oh, it totally is
And
real.
and we've got to address that.
Yeah, yeah. But I like what you're saying is that we never look at it as the root
Yeah.
is change.
Yeah.
And how do we how do we grapple with change, and how do we be inclusive in change? You know, and I'm going back to my coal miners, because if we could have come in and said, hey, you know, what do you need to be whole again if this piece is gone? But we didn't. We just
didn't.
sort of,
We
you know,
didn't.
and so then I can't really, as much as I disagree with a lot of the political things going on, I can't blame people for saying, all right, I'm going to vote for the guy that just has no respect for this, because and yeah, you know, I can understand that, and I think both, you know, not only politically but socially, we've got to get back to understanding each other and not labeling each other and not confining each other to these groups. You know, and I think we can do. I mean, I'm hoping the project that I'm working on will take us into that.
Well,
you know,
I
a
think
little
this is
bit
a good
step.
start. You know, I mean, at least you've done some research and you were able to talk to that 1%er. And you might be able to stick Rich and I's thing about it in there a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Because we're not that 1%er, right, Rich?
Right.
We're just trying to survive aspect of it.
Yeah.
And just getting back to that point you said about the coal thing. Let's say. Now remember, now we had the Civil War, and it was manpower, and then all of a sudden it was, quote, the change, the mechanism came in,
Right.
and then after a while the people were digging coal from underneath the ground. That was rich soil there,
Yes, it was.
and when you start thinking about agribusiness that we're talking about right now today, what saved during that transition period? They go back to the land
Right.
because the soil was rich.
Yeah.
And always they're growing the produce, and then boom, I fit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
exactly.
you see what I'm saying? I'm
Yeah.
fitting. I'm part of the process.
I'm part of.
But they didn't do that. There was nobody doing that.
There was, yeah. And actually, it's interesting. I have seen a couple of programs where younger people in coal mining areas are going back to the land as far as growing kind of designer crops for expensive restaurants, and they are making a living, and they are happy because, again, these are individuals, these are families deeply connected to the land, and to just say, well, you know, we're going to come in and we're going to teach you how to fix computers. That's not who they are.
No,
That's not
no,
who they
no.
are.
No.
If it's what they want to do, more power to them. Let's make sure that opportunity is available. And that's another thing, is that, you know, there's an argument about population growth that says if we keep growing the population, we create more opportunity. And there are aspects of that are actually true. You know, I can see where that is true. And I, again, take New York City. But there's always a tipping point. And I know that some people are offended by this, and I mean no offense, but we are a species. And when I look at every other species on the planet, all species have a tipping point where there's just too many, and the
Just
resources
can't
are
be
going.
too many. I don't care
Yeah.
what it is.
Yeah, and so it's, you know, I think we have to look at it. Even though we're smart and adaptable, we're still hunting mammoths in our mind and our heart. We still carry those things with us, and I think that's kind of a beautiful thread through history, the tapestry of history. It's a thread that ties us all together globally. It ties us back to those people that were with the cotton gins.
Oh, yeah.
We're all, it's that beautiful connectivity that we have. And I think that's what the overpopulation or the population growth conversation is about. How do we make sure that everyone has that choice and that opportunity? And with ever increasing populations, you look at poverty, you look at ageism, you look at consumerism, you look at this sense of place and how we migrate. All of those things tie in together, to how each of us, every seven, I don't know the complete number, but I know it's over 7.5 billion now on the planet.
That's it. 7.5 billion. 7 billion too many people on the planet. There's 7 billion too many, and every 12 years, another 1 billion. And if anybody that thinks about that, if they just think and realize 12 billion in 1 billion in 12 years, that doesn't make any sense at all.
But Richard, I think and this is where I think the folks who have been talking about population growth and overpopulation have maybe made a mistake, is the data comes out, but the humanity doesn't come out too.
Yeah.
And so those are 7 billion, 7.5 billion questions of who am I and how do I fit in. There's 7 billion dreams, there's 7 billion hopes. And I think that's what, when I started out the project thinking it was going to be easy.
Oh no!
Was I wrong?
No, you're in a. Wow,
Well,
I can see it. I mean,
I tell you,
I'm so glad to be a part of it.
I think that I would say at least 30 to 40% of the people that I started out talking about population growth with have quit talking about it.
Yeah.
And that saddens me.
They have no answers.
That's it.
They just don't have any answers.
They don't have
and that's why
answers.
I keep using that simple way of, we got to eat. And then everybody can relate to that. Whether you're poor or rich, I got to eat.
Yeah.
Whether you're eating lobsters or whether you're not.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But we're getting into a deal now, like I said, when you get on a plane and you fly, or when you're driving long distance and whatever, you see all that land. And I can see agribusiness, but they're developing pills. You can get full on pills.
I saw that
You
article.
get
I saw that article.
Full on pill, just a pill.
Yeah.
You got me? And as opposed to eating fresh vegetables, but you got to be that 1% to be able to afford them.
Well, and the thing is, again, that we may be able to. I mean, they did it in Star Trek.
That's where they're going. It's gotten to be a business.
But we're taking away again that very human
I know.
part of
That's a whole different.
what it is like to chew food, what it is like to taste, what it is like to have a conversation over a meal. And those are the things again that are that we can't solve through science and creativity.
And that's not the human part.
Yeah, and we've got to keep that human part in, and we've got to understand that it's a human part for everyone.
Yeah.
And when we start talking about, and this is where unfortunately some of the racist conversations come in, is when we start talking about population growth, and I'm going to take immigration. We don't want that group here. That's not the population / immigration conversation. And if you're having that conversation, it's not fruitful, it's not helpful, and it only serves to hurt people. It's got to be about, and I think I won't point to this, but if anyone in our audience would like to know more about what this is, I'm happy to share.
How much time you want to spend some time on that? I think you need to make a little presentation.
Well, I'd like to just
go through.
I'd like to. This is all about sense of place, so
please.
I
didn't know if you were through or not, but I know that you did want to talk about an event that you're. This is probably as good a time as any.
Yes, I would love to. And there's a little poster of it over here.
You better tell us.
My day job is I am the grants manager at Ecumenical Ministries of Oregon. It's a wonderful, wonderful group, and very dedicated to just realizing the potential in everyone. And so they are having the Collins lecture this year is on migration. And so they will be exploring through workshops and then a keynote talk in the evening, exploring what is the migrant experience? Why do people migrate? What happens? And I will just share with you, I did a video this past year for EMO that talked to a young gentleman who had just come to this country. He had come from a refugee camp. He was 26 years old when I spoke to him this past year. He went to the refugee camp when he was 3. 23 years. And he said every day they got up, they looked at the board, were their names on it to go somewhere. And so, you know, that's kind of what the migration, and it's called Human Migration, Claiming Roots in an Uprooted World. And so it really is about the refugee and immigrant experience. And I think, you know, when I'm talking about population and population growth, this is so connected. It's so part of the system. And so I would encourage folks, it's on November 1st. If you go to emoregon.org, there's information on how to register and what the workshops are. It's held at Concordia College. And so, yeah, I just invite everyone in the audience to
EM Oregon.
emoregon.org.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's...
Okay.
And so, yeah. And so I'm just going to, I was going to kind of go through the slides, but I think I'm just going to talk about it because I'm loving our discussion here.
I mean, I'm liking what you're saying. And in fact, before you leave that piece about the event there aspect of it, hopefully you'll be the keynote speaker.
I know.
And I'm not saying anything about the ministries because I'm very familiar with the organization, but they too are have just as much of a concern. How do they get more people in their churches?
Yes.
The young folks.
Yeah.
Again, migration.
Yeah.
So it's using the same kind of a concept.
Right.
Why aren't they coming in? And I know that's always a discussion. And they want to be involved.
Right.
And the ministry is trying to get involved with all of the social issues.
Right.
But they too, they were the leadership. I use the word were. And they've got...
Because you're correct.
Yes, and they've got concern.
The,
so the name of the game is that what you're talking about, as far as I'm concerned, that should be the main staple for the... Because otherwise, I'm trying to figure out what are they going to be talking about? you didn't mention the keynote speaker. Are they going to be...
You know, I would have to read it. I have not been working on it, so that's.
You do a good job already. I mean, this is the kind of discussion I think they would. I think they should enjoy.
I think that
especially that age factor. You know what I mean?
Well,
the age factor with those guys. You know, and women. You got men and women in there. That makes it nice.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But they too can address this issue.
Yes, and I think that's what they're going to try. Absolutely, because actually one of the episodes that in the People Factor is on belief, and how belief helps us understand who am I and how I fit in, and then what happens when beliefs are challenged, or when a majority belief becomes a minority belief. How and again we're seeing this all over the world. We're seeing this all over the world. And one of the gentlemen, one of the psychologists that I'm working with, he's doing the interviews on consumerism, but he was like, if you don't have unrelenting belief in science as part of it, because there are so many people out there that science will save us, and science will not save us.
Can't eat it. You can't eat it. You can't even eat gold.
This is true. Well, you could try.
You could try.
You could try.
You put it in your teeth, whatever, barter or whatever, but you got to eat.
Yeah.
And I guess the other point I was making in regards to that is the leadership. When you think about our leadership application today, doesn't talk to people talking to the solution to the issues. Right. It should be kind of like saying in so many words, what our needs are, but rather than asking them what are their needs, and you can always pick up a group, if you will, to develop the entree and the marketing and this, that, and the other. But the bottom line, you tell them, this is what we want to do.
Yeah.
We've got folks that have been digging. We've been in coal mine for a long time. We need agribusiness aspect of it.
Yeah. What
can you do to expedite this process, transition the whole, that kind of stuff, and then let them respond that way. And then when the electorate get it, they're getting something of a person that knows that particular piece. Then there's an accomplishment for the time that that person is there, as opposed to, well, I get in, I understand the game. Now I got $1 million coming into the bank.
No, I got to get reelected.
And I got to get reelected,
Yeah.
and I just want to keep this $1 million. I don't have to worry about doing anything anymore. In fact, they even tell you that. Don't worry about the stock market. You know, we'll just kind of let you just do your thing, and you don't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
So what do we do as the person that's here, who just lost this and lost this and lost that, and they're trying to figure out what's going on, and then we have to get angry among ourselves.
It's interesting. In fact, it'll be screening next Wednesday. I've just finished up a film on working with some students at Rosemary Anderson High School, and what we did is we explored how climate change impacts poor communities in Portland. And it was specific to Portland because Portland is named one of the safest cities regarding climate change, because we don't have hurricanes, we don't have a lot of flooding, we're not,
Right.
so we are considered safe. And so four of the students actually finished the class with me, and we'll be doing, we've made a film about their projects, but also what we talked about in class. And it was fascinating, but what I learned from that, and I guess I knew, but my mind kind of didn't quite snap to it. Listen.
Yeah. Yes.
Just
That's
be
right.
quiet and listen to what someone who maybe can't really articulate something academically, but listen to what they're saying, because out of that you find, oh, this is what the need is. And I learned so much from those 4 kids. I can't even begin to tell you how much I learned from them. And it was a really fascinating and wonderful experience. But it has to be listening. If I had gone in and said, okay, this is what everyone says is happening with poor communities and climate change, what do we think? They would have, first of all, the kids would have shut down. But it was, hey, what's your story? What happens when it's so hot? What do you do? And one young woman came up with, well, we go to the river, but the river's really polluted. But that's the only place I have to go to cool off.
See, to them, and again, having been in this arena for the last 40 years or so, and worked and ran for office, etc., it's the environment they're trying to figure out. How do I survive in this environment? Not the air that I breathe. How do I make a living? Is just a social side.
Social environment.
That's their environmental kind of a situation.
No, we really should talk about climate change just a little bit.
Okay.
The severity of some of the things that have happened, Katrina, this hurricane that's coming right now, are caused by overpopulation. People don't want to accept that, but it's right there in what they say. It's human cause. Human cause, that means there's too many humans. And they're using the heating, and they're using automobiles. They're heating up the atmosphere. That's what's causing this. And people don't understand that.
Let me throw a little bit of the equity lens on this, because what we have, and I agree with you, Richard, it is human caused, and it's caused by too many people with too much stuff. And what we are finding is that the people that haven't had the stuff are the ones that are suffering. And are the ones that are going to get hit by it.
That's right.
What will happen with us is we will say, we'll move to Portland. It's safer there. I can afford to do that. What happens to the people that are in South Carolina right now who don't have 1 red cent to get out of there?
That's right.
What
I don't know how they
happens?
did.
And I had a wonderful interview with Chris Voss from the Emergency Services here in Multnomah County. Fantastic guy. And he talked about the fact that even in Multnomah County, what you have is there is good land to live where you can live, and there's not so good land, and the poor get pushed to
Yeah.
the not so good land, and that's the land that is most rife for having climate change issues, flooding, places that you can't get out of when it's icy and when it's snowing. And so he really, it was a nice conversation. And again, that's part of the film next week. But it was really a nice conversation where he was really looking at the inequity in Portland in how land is distributed and how when climate events do happen here, how the poor, even before the event happens, they haven't got the money to buy insurance. They haven't got the money to get that air conditioner. They haven't got the money to buy the bottled water. They haven't got those things. So when the event happens, sure, help comes in, but it was help that was needed
After the effect.
Yeah, well, and then it goes on and on.
Yeah.
And he talks a little bit, and we also have a doctor talking from Kaiser talking about the trauma. Again, so we go back, maybe we can have the stuff, but we're still, who am I? How do I fit in? How has this impacted me? And how does it impact how I feel about myself?
You know what's so interesting about what you just shared? And I've been in politics for quite some time too, but at the same time, I've learned to eat too at the same time. And I understood what that was about. But as you were sharing this about this particular person, sharing this with you, working in a specific department, doing a specific job, and we've got elected officials who are the one that pretty well dictate what they should do and what they can't do. And being I've been in this environment, I just recently ran for a county. Not too long ago.
He really is aware of all this stuff.
And you see folks, and I'm not trying to anything negative about them.
Sure.
It's just that they're not aware.
Right.
You see, you've got this person whose expertise in that person should be sitting there on the diocese somewhere, saying, "Okay, fine, this is what we need. This is what we need to do, routine." But that should be the commissioner for what it be the environment or whatever, because that person has something to offer. These other individuals are just politicians. They just get elected, and that's where that's their focus.
Right.
And so that's the way it's designed, And
It is. It's the system that's designed.
And the other interesting thing about that whole process is that, and I know the process, they allow that kind of a person, if he's got something on their mind, whether they were working there or not, 3 minutes.
Yes. Yeah.
3 minutes to talk about this issue.
Yeah.
See, that's the sad thing about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
That's why I make films.
So that's what I'm saying. So what you're talking, I think is awesome. I think
thank
the
you.
seminar, I think it's a good idea again. But like I said, I'd like to see you more involved in that deal. In fact, I'd like to see who's going to be the speaker. Maybe you can get this guy to talk about this. Get human stuff to make people realize what's going on. Our leadership has to change. We're going through that.
Right.
But a lot of it is just hate and whatever on either side routine. That's not. We're talking about change.
Right.
Just show them the positive side from the standpoint of how do I eat, how do I get out of an environment. Maybe I don't have to get out of an environment if I can get someone to know how to make the changes.
Right.
And
Right. Exactly.
See, and where Richard said, well, he's talking, it's overpopulation. Well, someone needs to be there to address his issue.
Yes. Yeah.
See, because it has derived through time, and he has something to say about that.
Right.
So he's just looking for a solution to the problem, but he hasn't gotten folks most cases.
Right.
That shouldn't be his job. His job should be, I got a bucket list now. I paid my dues, and that's exactly where I'm at. I said, I can do it. I feel comfortable. And I'm sitting there, I'm 80 years old, and I feel good. I feel great.
I don't believe that.
I'm 80 years old. Trust me, my wife is 79, and I'm happy. I'll probably be. I'm gonna reincarnate a couple times. Richard and
that
I.
works.
Richard
that
and I.
works.
Reincarnated producers.
There you are.
But I'm doing things.
Yeah, but I think that
This has been good.
I think that, and I'm so glad, Richard, you're still working on this issue, because
Yes. It's good.
It's getting people to feel comfortable, because and actually I have a grad student that is going to be, we're going to film her as part of this project. We're going to film her trying to doing research on, you know, are people, why are you feeling uncomfortable? What are you feeling now when we talk about
I get you.
to try and extrapolate what is it that is so hard for us that we can't talk about it, because we can talk about so many other things, but we just, especially in this country, can't. And I don't know if it goes back to the eugenics and that it's so it awful and distasteful, and we never want to go there again. Absolutely. But that shouldn't keep us from saying, hey, let's recognize that we cannot have everyone meet their full potential in an overpopulated situation. We just can't do it. And by full potential, it's not just stuff. It's how you answer those questions, how you answer the fulfillment you have with your life. And that is so important. And I will quit working and talking about overpopulation and population growth when every person on this planet can meet their true potential, has opportunity, and once that happens for every single person on this planet, I'll quit talking about it.
And I think about the 59 million people that are essentially homeless, that are on the move around around the planet all the time.
Well, it's actually more than that. It's hit. I think it's hit 66. It was 65 million.
Oh, close enough.
Refugees. Those are the documented refugees. Now, that's not talking, and if you look on here, we have forced migration, migration by choice, and migration by force. We have economic refugees that don't get counted, and those are the people who just are in a place where they do not have enough economic opportunity to feed themselves, to give them their children the opportunities that they want. And you know, that's, you can't blame people for fleeing.
No.
You cannot blame that. But we do need to understand, and what my conclusion is that we need to be more about the root causes of forced migration. Migration by choice, if someone says, if there's someone sitting in, I don't know, Argentina, and they say, I really, really, in my heart, want to be a Chicago banker. I've always wanted to be a Chicago banker. They should move to Chicago and try their hand at banking, because that's what they want. That comes from inside. Migration by force is always external. Something pushes you, whether it's gentrification or whether it's actually war, whether it's famine, something pushes you.
Okay, I want to thank you for coming. We just have a few seconds now, and I want to thank the crew for making this possible. So I really appreciate your coming, having some good stuff on the board there, and providing information for people to be able to reach you.
Right.
Yes.
Wagging Tail Productions.
Yes.
And
happy to send the PowerPoint or anything that anyone would want to know.
Well, here's my number, and I like your change. You got that series.
Okay.
Welcome back, folks, to the Producers Show. I'm Bruce Broussard, this part of the show's host. And as the other show we just recently had, you had Richard Carpenter's here.
That was
And,
great.
that was a
Having
great
Jane.
deal, boy, talking about overpopulation and change. And I think that's going to be a very interesting piece. We got to
Sure.
bring her back on again. Got me?
Okay. Yeah, she's good.
Yes, and I think there's an announcement about there's going to be some sort of a function that's already on the other show. So get the repeat, folks, and check it out. It's really a good show. Well, in this particular show, we've got a kind of like an Oregon grown kind of a deal, kind of something that we're sort of like are pretty well familiar with. And there's been a lot of, if you will, of i.e. quote, demonstrations and issues of concern, i.e. political stuff. And we are heading into November and for the election aspect of it, and we'll probably have more of that. and so what we have here today is that we're going to give you sort of an opportunity how to deal with it, so it doesn't become overstressed, but understanding that it is the political process that we live in aspect of it, and we don't need to take the attention away from the issues that we're faced with here in the state of Oregon, or specifically in Portland. But so consequently, what we've got, our guest this hour, is that we've got someone that has sort of like been involved in this whole issue of investigative reporting and shooting that process from a camera standpoint as an individual, from a business standpoint aspect of it. And what's so unique about it is that he's able to capture the sides and the views and this, that, and the other, but also the danger that one has to be faced with while one does that kind of a stuff, and reporting that information out and getting it out to the masses, because most of the masses don't get involved. There's a lot of destruction of properties and things of that nature. So we don't need that here. In all due respect, we don't want that. And so the gentleman we have here today, Mike Strickland, is like I said, he's really a technician in many ways, and he's really a technician. He's in journalism. Maybe journalism not from the standpoint of just reading the newspaper aspect of it, but he's the guy that's got the real action aspect of it, because he's right there on the ground, as opposed to journalists, who sometimes, they're there, but when they get down, it's just pen and paper aspect of it. They put it out there, and you pick it up on the stand. Well, this guy here is right there, eyeball to eyeball. I mean, they see that camera. People know what a camera is all about, okay? And they know what that's all about. So anyway, so we've got the opportunity here now to have Mike here, and we're going to spend some time with him, and he's going to sort of take us through this whole process, and we're just going to let him just go with it. But before we start, I thought it would be a good idea to kind of get a feel for who is Mike and Mr. Strickland, and how did he get to the point where he kind of like, it's a passion for him. I mean, if to do this job right, it has to be, because of the kinds of things he has to go through on a day-to-day basis whenever he's shooting that kind of a scene. And he's providing a service to a lot of other folks. But like I said, we're fortunate to have him here. So let's go back in terms of, I know that he was, I met him, in fact, I met him in Alaska. He was born in Alaska, so he was down there with all those salmon that I couldn't catch.
Really?
Yeah, he was eating them like hot dogs.
Well, I grew up.
You grew up on them, I'm sure.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on the show. I know
okay,
we've been
Mike.
talking about it for a while.
If you can get a word in edgewise.
Oh, yes.
Pretty quick.
I can't. That's what I'm saying. After I get through, I'm gonna just sit back like you. You're gonna do it. Okay. Now go on.
But
Mike.
yeah, I grew up in Alaska. Grew up in Fairbanks, Alaska.
Fairbanks, Alaska.
Yep,
Yeah,
right in
yeah,
the middle
yeah,
there.
yeah.
It's probably great for someone to go and visit.
Yep.
For a week or two,
Yeah,
see the mountains, go salmon fishing and whatnot.
Yeah.
It was all right to grow up, but when you start getting to be a teenager,
Yes.
you start getting restless, and you want some action, you want to get into the city life. So I grew up skateboarding, snowboarding, playing guitar.
Okay. Yeah.
So that really became
I saw that.
one of my prime focuses there,
right.
playing guitar. So through most of my teens, playing guitar in rock and metal bands.
Wow.
There's not much you can do with that
Yeah,
in
yeah.
Fairbanks, Alaska.
That was your way out.
Yeah.
I saw that in the interview there. I
Yeah.
saw that. Yes.
So in the band that I was in, when our last guy turned 18,
Okay.
we decided to venture on down this way into the Pacific Northwest, and
Wow.
so that's how I
That's
ended
how you got in.
up here. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, man. Wow. So then, how'd you get in this bit? Well, we were still in the band. You're
Yeah.
still doing your thing.
No, not anymore. I mean, that was through my teens and 20s and
Okay.
whatnot.
But when you got here, when you got out of there, i.e. using the band piece, so what did you get involved in? What'd you do?
Well, I mean, I still played guitar at that particular band. didn't last much longer, actually. After we moved here, we lasted about a year or so.
Okay.
I was in a couple other bands throughout my 20s. I did live sound and concert production through my 20s and getting into my 30s there. That's just where I sort of ended up, what I sort of ended up doing and what I enjoyed, but then, you start getting a little older. I started getting into my 30s and it's like you start paying attention to other things, and that's around the time I started getting involved in politics and whatnot.
Okay.
I mean, I couldn't sit idly by anymore.
Were you in the
and watch
metropolitan Portland
things.
area? Are you down south, or where were you?
Yeah. Well, I've been here in Portland, if you count Vancouver, Portland area.
Right, that's it, yeah. Vanport, right?
Yeah.
Vancouver,
Since 2000, 2001,
Okay,
somewhere around there.
okay,
So
so
I've been here for quite a
Been around
while.
Yes, right, okay.
And so I sort of got into the video realm of things a little by accident.
Really? What happened?
Well, I've always been attracted to sort of the technical arts sort of fields, hence doing live sound and a little bit of studio recording as well. I did a little bit of video stuff as a teenager, and then as I started getting into politics, I realized there was a void, and you actually touched on this during the intro there. There's only so much that mainstream news can do. They're so limited.
Yes.
And so I sort of took it upon myself. I felt a duty of sorts to start covering things that I felt were important that mainstream media wasn't covering. A lot of the goings on at the colleges in the area, a lot of the, straight up Marxist indoctrination of things that are going on in the colleges and the classrooms, and I felt that was important to get out to the public. And so I started showing up at, these various different events, politicians' town halls.
Yeah.
A lot of people focus on, what the state senator or what the federal senators are doing, what the president is doing. A lot of people don't realize how important it is to get involved on a local level. Salem's an hour away.
Right.
Washington, D.C. is 3,000 miles away.
But this is the Mecca in Oregon,
right?
In the metropolitan area.
Right.
Yeah.
So, in order to have an influence and an impact, it's a lot easier to do that on a state legislator level or city hall level. Those people are much more accessible. But what these people were talking about was not being covered by mainstream media. So I was filming a lot of the politicians' town halls. I ended up doing several investigative pieces on some of the politicians. One of my proudest ones actually was on Jennifer Williamson, state representative. She's now the House Majority Leader. One of the things that I had filmed at PSU, actually, Portland State University, she was there talking about how she wanted to do away with Measure 11, and she specifically mentioned sex offenders, that she wanted to let all these sex offenders out of jail early. Well,
Measure 11, for the benefit of the audience, what are we talking about?
Measure 11 is the mandatory minimums for certain person-to-person crimes.
Okay.
Sex abuse crimes certainly fall under that. And she specifically mentioned that. And it's like statistically, people who commit sex crimes are much more likely to reoffend. And she's talking about wanting to let all these people out. I happened to catch all this on film before she knew who I was. And so I started investigating a little bit more with the money trail, with the trial lawyers pack and things like that. So I put out a series of videos about her openly, her own words, when she was talking about that, And so that's the sort of thing that mainstream media was not covering that I felt the public really needed to know about.
What was her reason for doing that?
Well, there's a difference between what she says her reason is versus what the real reason is.
All right.
The real reason is the more people who are out there committing crimes, the more lawyers are needed, the more people are needed in the justice system, the more money gets funneled to the trial lawyers pack. The trial lawyers pack, in turn, donates thousands upon thousands of dollars to Jennifer Williamson's campaign and all of her friends' campaigns. So that's really what it's about. But what she claims it's about is, we don't have the money for these prison things, and we need to invest in the schools instead. Well, maybe if we weren't paying off all of Jennifer Williamson and Ginny Burdick's and Kate Brown's friends, their well-connected political friends, we'd have more money for the schools. So those are the kind of things that I really, really wanted to explore, that I felt that they weren't being covered. And that's just one example of one of the things that I've done. You know, I've covered the protests, you know, just some of the goings on at the state capitol building, at City Hall, county commissioners meetings. And so, you know, in my process of, and also exposing what the politicians are saying and what they're all about, and what some of these certain advocates are saying, you know, Penny Okamoto in particular was one that I love to do videos on, because she is such an idiot. And I know she's going to grab this video and try to use it or something, but she is just a babbling fool. She has no idea what she's talking about. She oftentimes contradicts herself. She ends up, I don't know if it's inadvertently or intentionally, encouraging people to violate the laws that she supported. You know, for example, Penny Okamoto is the head of Ceasefire Oregon. They're one of the big anti-Second Amendment, you know, anti-gun organizations.
Okay.
And gun rights ended up becoming a very, very big issue to me.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, and you know, Penny, and this is just one example. You know, Penny Okamoto's up there. You know, someone at one of the forums that she was appearing at was saying, you know, you're telling me with this new universal background check law, you know, if the neighbor that I've known for 20 years wants to buy a gun from me, I have to drive 30 miles over to the gun shop and pay money for a background check. Hey, why can't I just, you know, why can't we just, you know, do the sale without any of that? And she goes, well, you know, if she says something like, well, you know, if you've known him for that long, and you know, you can risk it. It's up to you. You know, it's like she's blatantly encouraging people to violate these laws that she supported.
Now, as you are filming this, you know, and I notice you're interacting with your film. I'm just saying, you're filming and you're responding. This is not, you know, do you film? And then you sell the film to journalists, to the
So
to the
it had gotten to that point
Okay.
where I was becoming
you got a little bit
so effective, and again, not to toot my own horn, but you know, I was learning some more proper journalism skills,
right, okay.
because I had started off sort of in a guerrilla fashion of sorts. But where I was actually getting hired and commissioned by national and international news distributors.
they wanted your material.
Yeah, to go and cover events. You know, like they were emailing me and calling me.
okay.
People from Germany
Okay.
calling me saying, "Hey,
good.
there's this thing going on. You know, we'll pay you to go and cover this. Put together a 2-minute package, send it to us over our FTP."
Okay. So now you're a journalist.
Yeah, and I was getting hired by, you know, national blogging websites. I was getting hired by national organizations to do it, you know, some investigations and whatnot. So it had eventually reached the point where this was now becoming my second career of sorts, and so I started to step away from the music business. I was getting a little burned out on a lot
So
of
this
that.
was kind of like an OJT thing now, all of a sudden, as opposed to being hired. Let's say an Oregonian or something like that. Well, you know, you come in and you make the application, and we're looking for this kind of a person to do the film. And they have a filmer.
Well, it
and
was,
then
it,
they
was,
have-
it was a lot of freelance kind of stuff.
Yeah,
It was
but
really
but
loosely
normally
connected.
you have two people. You are a one-person band. Kind
Yeah.
of. That's what I'm saying. See, normally, you know, you got the person doing the shoot, and then you got the reporter, you know,
Right.
doing the deal. You were doing both.
Yeah, I was sort of except I was
First of
never
all, you kind of
I never intended to be an on-screen personality.
Right,
I
right.
always liked to be the guy behind the camera. You know, I never really intended to be the next Lars Larson or Lauren Southern or whoever. You
But
know.
welcome to the game.
Yeah,
Welcome
that
to
was
the
sort
club.
of
That's what
forced
you got.
upon
Yeah,
me
you
now.
got it.
But
You got it. You got it. Now you got it.
So
Okay.
so yeah, it had reached
Need
a
some
point
things.
where I was getting enough work doing that, and
Yeah.
that had really
Yeah.
turned into my
Yeah.
passion.
Yeah.
I was starting to step away from the music business, but I never really intended to leave it completely. I always wanted to keep sort of half a foot in, do the occasional gig, you know, just in case, you know, everything fell apart. And
When
and
did it
the-
start changing?
right.
Around 2014.
2014. That's when it
Yeah,
started.
yeah, about 4 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what was that shoot during that particular time?
Um,
And what kind of response did you get from the standpoint of the journalism? Because you sold that piece, right?
well, it
When did
wasn't
you
necessarily
start,
that.
When did you start selling?
Well, I can't go into too many details on this due to
not
non-disclosure.
details, but when did you start selling from the standpoint of selling it to the newspapers and other entities.
Well,
That
so
they were paying you for it.
well, I was getting Google ad payment from my YouTube channel.
Okay.
And I was getting a lot of my videos picked up by national news outlets,
Okay,
Fox
okay.
News, MSNBC.
Well, that's the key. Yeah, okay, they
Lots
need
of
to know
local
that.
news
Yeah,
broadcasts
yeah.
were picking my stuff up. And so,
You were in journalism then. See,
Yeah.
You got paid.
yeah, that,
You
that
got
was
paid?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you got paid. Yeah,
Yeah.
you got paid.
Okay.
See, that's what that's the point. See, that's what I knew about you.
okay.
You got me. I wasn't. I wasn't more into your personal deal. But when you got into the journalism aspect
Right.
of it, and they paid for it, that legitimatized you,
Right.
if you will, to cover news accordingly. And
Right.
it can be a very dangerous job because you're the camera and the person at the same time. You know, I mean, when you're asking questions, sometimes you're just sitting there, and you know what? Even you got a job, you might ask
A
questions.
lot of times I don't ask
Yeah,
questions.
but
What-
sometimes you may
Right.
ask a question, or maybe someone. But the norm would be that you just shoot, and someone else is doing the question.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Right.
But I mean that's when I saw you.
And just so we're clear here, when he says shoot, he means filming with a camera.
Right.
Just to clarify.
There is the
that
difference.
here.
That's a whole different ballgame. Yes.
So yeah,
no.
but I'd always intended to do the occasional sound gig. That was up until around March of 2015. I was working on an investigative piece. This guy by the name of Sky Fitzgerald. He's a documentarian. He's done a lot of different documentaries.
This is in Portland. Or?
Yes,
This is in Portland.
Portland area.
In Portland. Now.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So he was working on a documentary about the gun debate here in Oregon, and he had approached about a year or two prior to this, maybe 2 years. Was that 2 years prior?
Time be moving, man.
Yeah. So he had approached some people who I know who are pro-gun to appear in his documentary. He said he was, neutral on the issue, just wanted to get all different perspectives on it, and so he's kind of going through and documenting, some of their lives and whatnot. They're letting him
Yeah,
into his homes.
that's normal,
He's
yeah.
also doing this for some other folks as well, some of the Penny Okamoto and some of her friends and whatnot. Well, we come across this guy's trailer on Vimeo because he was trying to raise some more money to finish his documentary. And it turns out that this guy is totally in the tank with the anti-Second Amendment crowd.
Okay.
He's sort of doing his own little monologue in his in his little trailer here, and he's just glorifying Jimmy
Monologue
Burdick.
mean the shoot. Too. He's got the camera.
Right. Well, it was about
And
2 minutes
interviewing.
of trailer and then about 5 minutes of him speaking.
interviewing. Yeah, okay. He's doing the whole thing.
Just him speaking
Yeah,
into
like,
the
okay,
camera.
yeah, okay.
And he's talking about, the time has come now for, they use these buzzwords such as sensible gun laws. That just means more gun control, that really have no effect. We've seen that here in Portland.
Yeah,
As they've
that's right.
passed more gun control, our crime rates have actually been going up over the last couple of years here. So my friends got pretty upset that this guy had been deceiving them.
I
Again,
see.
Sky Fitzgerald is his name. And so they're like, man, I can't believe we let this guy into our lives and he had been deceiving us this entire time. So we had arranged to meet with this guy and I started questioning him. It's like, why are you lying to these people? My friends who were appearing in this, the Cochrans, Chris and Jenny, you folks and some of the folks at home may remember a few years ago, a woman who was killed out in Gresham, shot by her estranged boyfriend or husband, the guy with a bunch of face tattoos. That was her sister. That was Jenny Cochran's sister who had been murdered like that. And they were using her sister's death to promote their agenda, yet also taking advantage of their family. And another one that they were documenting was Michelle Finn. Now she's a single mother. Her son has autism, one of her sons. He's also had a bunch of spinal surgeries and whatnot. And so she was another one who Sky Fitzgerald had gone into, who she had led into her life. And she just felt totally deceived and let down by this guy. So it reaches a point where I'm asking him point blank on camera, why are you lying to these poor people in your documentary? His response was to steal 2 video cameras from me. Then I get on the horn with 911 saying, yeah, we're at the Sherry's at 181st and Powell. This guy, Sky Fitzgerald, he just stole 2 video cameras from me. He's leaving now. And I start following him out there to see what he's driving so I could relay that back to 911. Now this guy starts physically attacking me, as I'm trying to see what he's driving, He gets me pinned up against this other car. Now, I'm not there to
Jeez.
fight. I'm not there physically getting all up in his face about it, you know. So, you know, he was entirely aggressive on his own. I didn't want to fight. I'm not there to fight. Chris Cochran started rolling some video on his cell phone as this started happening. My hands are up. I have another camera in one hand, and I have my cell phone in another hand that I was on the horn with
shooting and
911
talking.
with. Yeah. And so, so this guy picks me up and slams me onto the pavement. This is after he stole 2 video cameras from me, and as he was trying to get away, he slams me onto the pavement with his weight landing with me right on my arm here, breaking my arm in multiple spots.
Really?
Yeah, the globe of my humerus bone was completely severed off from the rest of the bone.
Gee.
I had to go in for emergency surgery that night. The multiple fractures. I lucked out and I got a really good orthopedic surgeon. So I ended up with a bunch of metal in my arm. I have 13 screws holding my arm together. I had to go in for a second surgery a couple weeks later. They had to repair part of my scapula at that point that had broken. I was on painkillers for months. I couldn't work for months. Now let me tell you, getting off the painkillers is horrible, man. Absolutely horrible.
You're very addictive during that time?
No, and I wanted to get off that stuff
I got you.
because I didn't want to
Yeah,
be
right,
on
right,
that stuff
right.
anymore.
Are you making contact with this guy? He's taking care of all the hospital, right? It's one way or another.
I can't really go into that due to non-disclosure agreements.
Oh, okay.
But here is probably the most infuriating part of the entire thing. So despite the fact that it's on video, because I started rolling video when I started calling 911, and then when he slammed into me, the recording had stopped because it's got a big button here. In fact, I think I have yeah, it's got this big record button here.
I see. Okay.
So, you know, and I'm holding it like this, and, you know, as he's slamming up into me, you know, that it stopped recording during that. But there was Chris Cochran's cell phone video of it. So despite there being video evidence, the district attorneys decided to drop all charges against him. And they told me that because after he stole the video cameras, after he slammed me onto the ground, and as he was getting into his car to make his getaway, he turned to Chris Cochran and he said, "Don't worry, I'll bring it back." So the district attorney, Dennis Shen, one of the deputy district attorneys, then claimed that it's not theft or robbery because he said he'd bring him back.
This is Multnomah County?
Yeah, Multnomah County deputy district attorney. And so he never really gave an explanation as to why that was not assault. But that, I think that sets a very scary precedent. You're going to hear me say that term quite a bit over the next few
Were you
weeks
being
here.
represented by it at that time?
By the district attorney, because an individual cannot press charges against someone. That has to be done through the district attorney.
Okay.
So that sets a very scary precedent of, you know, if somebody sees Dennis Shen walking down the street, and God knows he's made a lot of enemies as a district attorney prosecuting people, you know, if you apply that same logic, a person then, according to him, has the right to forcibly remove his car keys from him, slam him to the ground if he tries to stop them from forcibly removing his car keys, take his car for a joyride, and as long as he says, "Don't worry, I'll bring it back," that's not a crime, according to Dennis Shen.
Interesting.
It's just so crazy.
Wow.
So this left me partially disabled. I do not have full use of my left arm.
Yeah.
If I'm walking down the street, like right now, it does not look, you know, I'm not disfigured,
Right, okay.
you know, but you know, I can't go back to the live sound business. I can't lift speakers. I can't push road cases around, you know, because you're pushing road cases up and down ramps and
Yeah.
whatnot.
Right.
You know, so
That's right, that's
I had to
right.
leave that business, you know, and certainly this incident plays into my mind during the future things that we're going to get into at another point here. But that was sort of my first brush with the realization
Of
of,
what you were being faced with.
yeah,
I mean, you know, just going into that deal.
Yeah.
And when you think about it from the standpoint, you know, when you see it as a layperson, when you see things on their tubes and whatever, and you see everybody that's filming, you know what I mean, and you know, you see in the demonstrations and whatever, you see the people right in the middle of all of this kind of action aspect of it.
yeah.
I
Well,
mean-
when I'm filming protests, you know, I'm not there to fight or argue with
Right,
anyone
right,
or
right.
instigate anything. I rarely ask questions when I'm
Right,
there.
right.
I'm more apt to ask questions if I'm covering a politician's town hall or some other public figure of some kind, like Penny Okamoto or some of his other people, or other people
right,
who are specifically
Right,
advocating
right,
for
right,
certain
right.
public policy
Right,
things.
right.
But when I'm at these protests, I like to take a fly on the wall perspective, you know, almost a gonzo news perspective. I like to put the viewer right in the middle of the action, you know, and you know, and I always had the luxury of what mainstream doesn't, and that is, for the most part on YouTube, I'm unlimited in what I can post. Mainstream media is limited. They have to take a 3-hour protest, pare it down to a 2-minute piece that runs in between weather and sports. You know, the Oregonian, for example, you know, they only have so many paragraphs they can get in. You can't possibly sum up 3 hours of a
And
protest.
that's a problem. That's a problem.
And that's
Then that-
that's where I felt that I
That's why
could
you-
fill that
good.
need right
and,
there.
and folks were interested in that.
Yes.
Okay.
And yeah, my YouTube channel, you know, millions of views. You know, I've got 27,000 subscribers by now. Again, I've had videos featured on national news, and some other people in the area ended up doing the same thing. Dan Sandini did a lot of that stuff. And Bruce, do you know what happened late last night? Another guy who had picked up a camera and decided to cover these protests. You might want to brace yourself for this.
Yeah.
Leo Stratton.
Yes, Leo.
He died.
You kidding me?
Yeah. He died in a truck wreck.
What?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
He died.
Yeah, Leo's been on your show.
Yeah, I saw
he was
him.
one of the ones who picked up a camera in my absence, and we'll get into why in a
Oh
later.
wow!
Yeah, Leo
He was on
died.
Facebook the other day, and he was
Yeah.
responding to something that I said just a couple days ago.
Leo
This
died.
was just last night?
Yeah, because
Oh, my
he's a
God.
truck driver.
Oh wow!
Coming back on one of his routes from Spokane. So we're now short one of these guys out in the field who was doing
Oh,
some of this
wow.
work. Yeah, Leo
He's done
died.
some nice things.
He had a lot of friends and a
Oh,
lot of
wow.
people. Yeah, he had a wife.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my God! Well, when's the funeral?
I don't know. I mean, his wife is just pretty
I mean,
shook
she's
up.
shook
Everybody's
up.
scrambling
Oh,
right
wow,
now. It is
wow.
it is public, so you know
Wow,
I'm not you know
wow,
breaking
wow.
any secrets here.
Wow.
You know, it's in the
I
news.
would have known. Gee.
Yeah. Yeah.
Gee
But
whiz, Leo.
that's an example of the effect of this sort of, you know, citizen
right,
journalism
right,
thing.
right.
Guys like Leo were picking up the camera
Yes.
and getting out there
Yes,
and
he
filming
was.
some
Yes,
of
he
these
was.
things.
Yes, he was. And you know, in all due respect, that's journalism in a more focused area kind of a deal. And
It's so real and raw.
yes,
And
right,
that was really what I wanted to capture, the realness of everything.
Well, see, the other thing about your type of journalism is that because it is personal, it's not just a kind of just a shooting and you just throw it over here, writing a couple of things or whatever. You're in it. I mean, well, my point is that for that particular cause, and so that makes it real, and that makes it, you know, from the standpoint that this is coming from someone that's human, if you will, not just some artificial situation.
Right,
Then
right.
one can take that if they want to counter that or fact check all that other good stuff. That's good, because that means the competition will have to come out. But if it was just nothing, you wouldn't have been making those
Right.
those numbers, if you will, on
Right.
that. Because guess what? It didn't come out.
What killed this Leo? What?
He was a truck driver.
He was a truck driver. He got
Yeah,
into
but
a
what
wreck.
killed
He
him?
got in a wreck. He was in the truck driving a
Oh,
truck.
Yeah.
Those
all
big
right.
ones, those big deuces.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was
Okay.
in a big truck.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, we'll definitely keep you in the loop. I mean,
Please,
I'm sure
please.
you'll see things coming up on your Facebook
Please,
about
please
a
do that.
funeral
Yes,
and,
please keep me in the loop on
remembrances
that,
to him
please.
and whatnot.
Okay, wow. Well, keep going. Wow, that is
I'll say.
what a loss. Wow, he was doing a number of things. Yeah,
Yeah, and I just felt the need to mention it on
Oh,
the
I
show.
appreciate that. Yes,
Just
good. For a lot
happened
of
today,
folks
so-
who, yeah, he's a follower. Yes, he is. Yes.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, let's go on. Keep going now. What are some of the other things that you feel that basically got you really into this, and you're still doing it? You're still doing it.
Well, I'm somewhat inhibited.
Because of this other issue.
Yeah, because of the other issue that we're going to get into here, and thank you again for having me on the show.
Oh, hey,
and
my
for those
pleasure.
watching, you know, Bruce is wanting me to have
Yes.
come on
Oh,
this
yes,
show,
yes.
either this show or the Sunday show.
Yeah,
Sundays,
well, oh,
right?
yes, I'm gonna. Well,
Yeah.
You're gonna be
And,
on
over,
quite a
over
bit.
the next several weeks
Yeah.
or so.
And then plus the fact, you know, we are getting into the political era, like I
That's
said
right.
before.
Within-
and October is
within the
huge.
next month or so.
It's huge, and so hopefully we might be able to, you know, the idea is to get as much about some of the things that he's done, and then all of a sudden we're looking forward to saying we got to cover this stuff, because we're right in the mix of the most major change our country has ever had.
Yeah.
With President Trump and the whole line. Now, it's about change, and a lot of folks don't understand that piece. So what you've been doing, and it's going to be very, very important to have coverage of this piece
Yeah.
for November. So at the end of the day, we still have an America.
Yes.
You understand what I'm saying? Yeah.
That'd
With some
be
sense
nice.
of direction. That would be a good one. See. So that's in all due respect, that's my rationale reaching out to you, because I've known some of the work that you've done before. And you've done some things with me and whatever, and you know what I have to go through.
Yeah.
Just being, i.e., a conservative or whatever that nature. It's not about conservative. It's just doing the right thing.
Right.
You know.
And you know, and I see a lot of. And again, to get more a little bit of a local issue, you know, I don't see things as divided as they need to be, and you probably see that more than I do.
Yeah, that's right.
You know,
That's
I mean,
right.
you know,
That's right.
these things aren't necessarily mutually exclusive to
That's
each
right.
other.
That's right.
Like
That's right.
the protests that we're going to be talking about in
Yeah,
future weeks here, that was in response to what had happened to Alton Sterling, but I think more importantly, Philando Castile. Now, he was the guy outside of Minneapolis who pulled over in his car with his girlfriend, and he informed the officers that he was a licensed CHL holder, concealed carry guy, and that he was carrying. And you know, the officer, you know, was instructing him to slowly reach down into his wallet, pull out his wallet. So the guy starts doing it, and the officers shoot him. And his girlfriend starts live streaming from the car. I'm sure this starts ringing
Yeah, I
some
saw
bells
that. I
for
remember
people
that.
at
I
home.
remember
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
everybody's remembering that
Yes,
now.
yes,
So this
wow.
protest in question that we're going to be talking about was in response to that. And that's something that I think the Black Lives Matter crowd and the pro-gun crowd
they
can
got together.
combine on.
Yeah,
And you know, I looked at a lot of those same things with the Bundy protests as well, and the Lavoy Finicum stuff.
yeah.
I thought, you know, what Kelly Stewart and you to some extent, and Leo and Bruce Cuff, I thought what they had to say was a lot closer to what Teresa Rayford and Jesse Sponberg are out there saying than what people think. And you know, early on when that Bundy stuff was getting started, I was trying to encourage both groups to talk with each other.
Yeah, right,
Could
right.
you imagine the impact of Teresa Rayford shaking hands with Kelly Stewart?
Yeah.
I mean, that would have sent shivers down the spines.
Well, you see, again, when you think about journalism from that particular perspective, we have such a divide. You got commercial journalism, you know, I'm talking about the big boys, you know, I'm talking
Right.
this, that, and the other. And then you got the other 80 or 90% of the people being represented by this other segment, this smaller segment.
Right.
See, and a lot of times they don't understand it. So a lot of times, i.e., law enforcement tends to be on this side as opposed to this side.
I don't know. I can't speculate. There's certain things I can't talk
But-
about.
but,
so.
but I can.
Yeah.
and I'm running. I run for office, and basically, it's like anything else. I got this, and I'm seeing it. I'm living it every day. You got my point? When I'm sitting there trying to access, you know, maybe the sheriff department or something, and say, "Look, can't you come on and let's talk about Wapato and whatever?" And you can't get these folks.
And if you can't talk about it, I can.
That's right. That's what we do here. See, so this is a very important piece, and this is good work here, because Richards has been doing this for a number of years.
Okay.
I've been doing this for a number of years, and you know, a lot of times it's journalism too. It's
Oh, yeah,
journalism,
right.
It's journalism.
Yeah, now I've seen Richard on your show several times, you know, but as soon as I walked in the studio here and saw him, I'm like, oh yeah, I've seen that guy on YouTube plenty of times.
Yeah.
Oh, YouTube. Okay.
Yeah.
So we're partners in many ways, aspect of it. And then after I do the Voters Digest piece, but this is kind of his ship.
Yeah.
And so we join one another. So I'm there and whatever. But the bottom line, we're talking about journalism.
Right.
We're talking about change, and we're a part of that. You're a part of that.
Yeah.
And that's why we have, i.e., we have this situation, open signal. You know, it was PCM at one point in time. But the whole idea for the little folks.
Yeah.
In fact, but at the same time,
I noticed that change. They wanted to make it more accessible, so
That's
the
right,
average
exactly.
person can
Yes.
go out there,
See,
grab a camera, and hit the streets.
That's
and
right.
that's what I'm
That's
all
right.
about.
And that's what you do.
And I care less about the political
That's right,
affiliations
that's
with
right,
that.
That's right.
You know, and more about the truth, honesty, and
That's right,
transparency
that's right,
of
that's
what's
right,
really
that's right,
happening,
that's
whether
right,
it be
that's
out on the streets,
that's
whether
right.
it be what the politicians
That's right,
are saying
that's
and
right,
doing,
that's right.
whether it's what the police are saying
That's
and
right,
doing.
exactly.
You know, I just want there to be openness and
Yes,
transparency
yes,
about
yes.
things.
I think that's very, very, very important. But you notice, we're not in the newspaper ads, if you will, from the standpoint of the scheduling.
Right.
You got me?
Right.
But now that we've got technology, you can go that way. But we're not in the Tribune, or we're not in the Oregonian.
That's right.
and-
We
and-
aren't.
and-
Which it should be. Which
That's
it
right.
should be.
Here's-
They're talking all about us, about the little folks.
That's
Here's
right.
one interesting thing. You know, I really get the hunch that a lot of local mainstream people were not too fond of me because I was scooping them on a lot of things.
yeah.
You know,
Oh, yeah.
I was covering a lot of these events better than they do,
yeah.
and because I was getting so many views. You know, in a way, I was bypassing
Yeah.
the local media and just getting picked up by
Yeah.
national
Yeah.
outlets.
Yeah.
You know,
And that's good.
And that's
good
where,
thing. It's a
and
good thing.
getting back to what you were just talking
Yeah.
about, you know, where it's the little person. We no longer need to rely on
right, that's
mainstream
right.
media. We have YouTube.
That's right.
We have Facebook. Even though Facebook clamps down on a lot of
Yep, it
things,
does.
you know, people can make their own websites. People can become a contributor on sites like Medium
Yep.
or
Yeah.
Examiner, things like
Yep.
that,
Yep.
where for the most part you can talk about whatever
That's right.
you want to
That's right.
talk
That's
about,
right. That's
as long
right.
as you're not defaming
That's
someone
right.
or
That's right.
making
That's right.
things
That's
up.
right. That's
And
right.
I think that is so important.
It's good.
And again, that's regardless of political affiliations.
That's right. That's
You know,
right.
that-
And I like what you said there, because no due respect, they may not say, well, we don't want to relate to that piece, but these folks are living. They're just as human as anybody else. And sometimes it's
Right.
better to let them speak out, if you will, to find out what's on their mind, as opposed to just letting them just sit back. And then that's when we start talking about conflict, right? You know what I mean? But we got a guy like you know, that's why it's so appreciative to have you on this time, and at the same time, get as much as we possibly can, and hopefully you might have maybe use this as a vehicle, if you will, at time, even if it's just a one show a month on my end, the Voters Digest, and you just come on, you know what I'm saying? And here comes Strick.
Uh-oh.
You know what I mean? But or vice versa here with Richard here.
Yeah.
We'll do the same thing sometime, you know. If it's something that we want to really, like I said, November's right around the corner. And Richards already knows we're going to probably be doing shows over here too.
Yeah.
And in politics, right, Rich?
Yeah, that's next.
That's what we're going to do.
Next.
And you're going to be the guy, like I said, that's going to be out there as best we can, and maybe get together with some of the other guys.
Yeah.
And say, okay, fine. Let's see if we can meet with Bruce sometime. Let's have a cup of coffee. And I got an hour, so that means I got an hour every week. You know what I'm saying? And then it's an hour, but I might be 30 minutes here and 30 minutes there, and get the word out to the people. Because it's going to be very important that people understand who they're voting for and why.
Yeah, and again, that goes back to I wanted to focus so much on what was happening locally, because a lot of people, they just pay attention to what Trump is doing or what Obama was doing. There's so much. I think there's more power on the local level than there
very
is on
much
the
so.
federal level,
Oh, very much
especially
so.
with all the gridlock that's going on today.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
you look at what actually happens. It happens on the state level.
Yeah.
The state people are much more accessible.
Yes.
You know, and again, I don't care about your political affiliations.
that's
You know,
right, yeah.
pay attention to what your local politicians are doing.
Exactly.
Find out who your state representatives
Exactly.
are. They oftentimes are out there holding town halls. Attend
right.
those town halls.
Yep.
Make sure your voice is known.
And ask
Film
questions.
them. Film
Yep.
the stupid
Yes,
things they're
yes,
saying.
yes.
Dude, I've been out there filming these people. Half these politicians that are in power making policy,
Yep.
they can't form a complete sentence.
That's right. That's right.
They are so brain dead.
That's right. That's
and
right.
that's
That's right.
one reason why I felt the need to get out there and film these
And that's
things.
the problem we're having today.
Well, and that's why a lot of these people decided that they didn't like me.
Yeah.
Because all I did was film what they're saying, what they're doing, and posting it up for the world to
You're
see.
messing with their eats.
Yeah, I guess.
It really boils down to it. But my point is not a personal eat we're talking about. It's about impacting everybody. And we just went through
Yeah,
that process.
this
It's
is-
impacting everybody. I mean, all of a sudden, got the school bond thing.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, it's $150 million bucks. And
The one that's over budget that they passed a few
budget
years
aspect
ago?
of it, and now all of a sudden they're trying to tax the people again.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. And then they've got another.
Are you going to fall for that again?
No way, no way. You know what I mean? And you've got these people on the school board. They have no clue.
I had no idea.
That's
no
right.
clue. No idea.
Well, you look at the superintendent. Every few months, there's
Oh,
some
man.
scandal and a superintendent
my
resigns.
God. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Other people's money. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it's just that 1%.
No transparency,
No
no accountability.
No accountability.
Because
at all.
even if they get sued, it's not their money;
That's
it's our
right.
money.
They just say, okay, fine, let's put another bond measure out there,
Yeah.
and then we'll spend all the money there is. And a lot of folks don't listen. We're not on the schedule.
Yeah.
We're not in the newspaper.
Tragedy to have this next bond thing passed.
It's insulting. And imagine you talking about gentrification. It's not about just black folks. It's about all kinds of folks.
Mm-hmm.
And what about all those seniors out there that have paid for their homes, struggle hard to get them, and all of a sudden they're overtaxed and they get thrown out.
Exactly.
And people are so proud they
That's
just
what's
leave.
happening.
I mean, and then they'll call the cops to throw them out, put them on the.
Yeah.
We could care less where you go.
Yeah.
Just get out. But then right over here, this little end over here, oh, you're homeless. Okay, come on out here on a Saturday and get your free Nike and a
Right.
plate of food. And that's insulting.
Yeah, it's just peanuts.
Oh, yeah.
It's insulting.
It's the crumbs.
Oh yeah. Or if not that, well, gee whiz, we need more money for the homeless. Wait a minute. We don't know. We need more housing for the homeless. Wait a minute, nut. How much is the rent going to be?
How much is
Are
it
you
going to
getting
cost
that,
to
Bill?
build the house?
Yeah. How much rent is it going to be?
20,000 units. That's
You see what I'm saying? I'm
Forget
just saying. And then, but then I saw an article just recently that the governor who's running for office had said that they asked her a question about how you're going to deal with the
Talking
homeless.
about Kate or Newt? Yeah.
Kate, and she said, well, we only have 1,500 of them in the state of Oregon. That
I
was
think
it.
she needs to add another zero onto
And
that.
then over here,
Four
then over here
thousand 700.
Then over here,
Just in Portland. That's not counting Eugene or Salem.
Okay.
But then we
Yeah.
got, but then we was.
I was just driving through Salem a couple weeks ago. There's a homeless camp underneath one of the
Oh yeah,
overpasses going across the river.
yeah.
downtown.
It's just insulting. Then we got a mayor. He's talking about maybe about 5,000 or so. And then I noticed that Nick Fish, one of the city commissioners, he's now saying we need more money for housing. And I said, wait a minute. And then taking the money from the county. I mean, I saw so much when I was, but you can do just so much.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you got 3 minutes to speak.
That's right.
If
There's
you
too
don't have
many.
the money, I mean, you got the unions halls. That's all political corruption aspect
That's
of it.
bad.
You don't have access to nothing. The only thing we have is this situation right here, and people like
And,
yourself.
and if I recall, that's one of the reasons you were running for mayor.
That's exactly.
was to districtize the city.
Exactly.
So the citizens actually have
What
someone
would be
that
in part-
represents their
that's
part of
right.
the city.
They weren't interested in no districtization.
Yep.
No interest in districtization.
Oh yeah, because
whatsoever.
that works against
Oh,
their
it works
own.
big time.
their
You
own
start
interests.
getting other folks, because otherwise, if you run for mayor, you gotta run. Well, when you run for city council, you gotta run citywide.
Yeah.
You see, what I mean, you can't raise that kind of money. You know what I'm saying?
That's right.
Unless you're the incumbent,
The-
or unless you're well connected.
Oh, you gotta have money.
You know,
And,
yeah.
then when the definition of well connected, you're tied. This is what you will represent, and that's it.
Speaking of which, did you see Terry Bean gave $5,000 some odd dollars to Joanne Hardesty?
Really?
For those who don't remember, Terry Bean is a big time Democrat donor, even on a national level. He's given millions upon millions
Wow,
of
so
dollars.
so-
But he was the guy. He was actually, I don't recall if he was indicted, but he was at least arrested and charged with statutory rape in Eugene.
Wow.
For
remember
having
that.
sex with underage boy.
I remember
He paid
that.
off the boy to disappear.
Wow.
So now the prosecutor didn't have a victim to bring forward, and they had to drop charges on him.
Wow.
You can get away
That's
with
that
that
money. You
as
got
long
the
as
money.
you're rich, well-connected,
You got-
and you're
you got
personal friends
you
with the
got money.
governor.
In fact, let's talk about that for a minute. You've been around, and naturally we've got this historical, they quote, historical race between two African American women vying for the city seat. You know them both.
I mean, I
Have you
wouldn't
ever
say
seen
I
them?
know them. I've covered a couple of
Have you
their
covered a
things
little bit?
over the years.
What do you
yeah.
think? What's your thought?
Oh, John.
I'm trying, we're going on the side deal a little bit, but I want
Well,
to get
you
that.
could still
I
get
don't
Joanne
think-
on here, couldn't
Oh
you?
no! Well, no. The bottom line is that in all due respect,
They probably don't like you.
no. It's not the like. I know what the questions ask. I know what the issues are.
Because you'll ask them the tough
I'm
questions.
gonna ask them those
You
tough
show up
questions.
to these forums, it's all prearranged
Yeah,
questions.
yeah,
It's the same questions in
That's
every
right.
forum.
That's right.
And they already have their prearranged answers.
If you notice, we don't have no notes here.
Yeah.
And
Well,
just
a little
like
bit of
yourself.
notes, but just some basic
just
guidelines.
basic stuff, guidelines. I mean,
Okay.
we're going to ask you the question. Richard's not going to just sit there and just let us just talk. He's going to intervene. You got
Right.
my point?
But I mean, my take on especially Portland politics is, all these politicians, policy-wise, they're basically all the same.
Yeah, yeah.
Very little
Yeah.
difference policy-wise
Yeah,
between
yeah,
any of them.
yeah,
and
yeah.
that's regardless of if they're female, if
Yeah,
they're
if
black,
it don't
if
matter.
they're
It don't matter.
if they're native,
It's the
if
same-
they're Latino,
it's the
if
same
they're
deal.
white.
It's the
It
same
does-
deal.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
Policy-wise, they're
Yeah,
almost all
it's
identical.
the same
And
deal.
I don't see why they even bother to run people against other
that's
people.
right, that's right.
Except their own ego.
That's right. That's right.
Because they all
that's
want
right.
power.
Like I said, I was smart enough to know. I knew I could afford the filing fee. You got me? But I'm not going to go out and refinance my home and all that other.
Right.
That's ridiculous. But hey, we have some sort of a vehicle here, and you throw out the issues, and you hopefully it'll stick, and take advantage of the 3-minute piece in the front of the county commissioners, who again they don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
But the bottom line, at least it's 3 minutes. You got my point? And then that's it. That's all you can do. You can't
And
do
that's
nothing else.
that's one of the reasons why
Why
I
you
felt the
there.
need to do what I needed
And
to
that's
do,
why-
because I could start holding these people more accountable.
That's why we
for
want
their
people
own
like.
words
That's
and
why we want
actions.
people like you involved in this
Thank you,
campaign
thank you.
by bringing you on,
Yeah.
and so you can show those pieces,
Yeah.
so the people out there who are just going to be bombarded with paperwork, and everybody's going to be kissing babies and looking good,
Yeah.
and they hired a nice marketing tool.
You can follow the
that
money.
brings-
Even if say someone's disabled,
Yeah.
they can't get around. They can't
Yeah.
actually
Yeah.
attend some of these
That's
things.
right. They can't.
But you can look on Orstar. You can start following the money. Orstar is the state financial disclosure thing for all the politicians, whether it
That's a
be
biggie.
whether it be the governor,
That's right.
people running for state legislature,
That's
or
right.
the mayor seats.
That's right.
You
That's
You
right.
can start following the money.
Could you spell that or whatever?
It's through the Secretary of State's website. You know, ORSTAR is the name of it. ORESTAR.
And Richardson is up there. He's the Secretary of State.
Yeah.
Richardson's up there. Give Richardson the call. They'll tell Richardson. Dennis
Richardson, yeah, I've been
is-
reading about him.
Yeah, so tell him, ask him. In fact, maybe he can send somebody up here and educate people how to do it.
Yeah. Well, see, that's one of the things they don't want you to do. They don't want you to investigate where their money's coming from, who their well-connected friends are. They don't want you to investigate that. And I'll just throw one tiny example out there. You know, when this Terry Bean stuff was going
Right.
down a couple years ago, I did a little bit of digging on him. He's actually listed on ORSTAR under a few different variations of the spelling of his name.
Wow.
Oh,
Now, if an average person were to do that, you'd get busted with some sort of fraud charge of some
wow.
kind.
Oh, wow.
Terry Bean is allowed to use different variations of his name and list different employers and occupations on there. He gets away with it with no...
Knows the system.
Yeah.
A system that he lobbied with others
Yeah.
to get on board to vote for the deal. See, to bring it back to the table aspect. Of it.
But another thing that I
Okay,
was...
where are we? Where is now? We got about another 7 minutes.
Yeah.
Now let's hit some other goodies there.
Well,
Where we going?
I was going to say, you
6
know...
or 7
You
minutes.
got,
Yeah.
you brought us a couple of visuals, if you will, of some of the work that you've done. Can
I just want to say real quick, you know,
Give me one or
I
two of those.
encourage everybody to get out there, grab a video camera, even if it's just on your phone.
Yes.
Go out there, film the politicians, attend their town halls, post it up on YouTube, post it up on your Facebook channel, your
And alert
Facebook feed.
people like me and Richard.
Yeah, I mean,
we'd be
the
more than
public
glad to
needs
put
to
it
know
on.
what these people are saying
Yeah,
and doing.
yeah, we do
So-
too. Yeah, and again, like I said, these two individuals that are running for office, both Loretta Smith and Joanne Bowman, are really
Hardesty. Bowman is her...
no Hardesty now. Okay.
Was that her maiden name or something?
That was her maiden name.
Okay.
There was a change.
9 years ago. Yes, she's married. She's not married.
You've probably known her for quite a while. Huh?
I know everything
She
about
came
her.
in here.
Yeah.
She's been in here.
Yeah. I've interviewed her a couple times, maybe or whatever. But the fact of the matter is, this is a very important race, and I just don't want just anybody to be there.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, I'm not going to sit up there and try to dwell on a lot of their history and their past, all the negatives. As far as I'm concerned, that should have been caught and addressed when they filed to run for office.
See, they don't want to talk about that.
See?
It's people like myself
Yep.
and Leo
Yep.
and
me.
yourself.
And Richard.
Yeah, yourself
Yeah,
and
that
others
they don't
out
wanna deal
there
with. So-
who find that stuff.
But guess what,
Nigel,
though?
you know,
Yeah,
Nigel's another guy.
right. But at the same time, though, hey, we're going to talk about it.
Yeah.
They don't have to be here to talk
Right.
about it. I mean,
They're more than welcome to come
they
in
can
and
come
speak for
and they can
themselves.
speak for themselves, so I'll speak for them. That's exactly what I'm going to do come November, so they can just understand if that's what they want me to do is just talk about their negatives. I know the negatives. I know where the bones are hit.
Right.
You got me? And I know where the issues are. So the key is that we need people in there that are going to be leadership. We need some help on that.
Well, they probably wouldn't want to
I think
answer
we're
those
we're
questions.
doomed in general with our city council and the mayor.
Oh
and
my
whatnot.
God, Jesus Christ! What a deal! You know, what a deal. But anyway, that's it. Look, we got about 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Throw a
You
couple
want to
of-
get it? You want to get into the meat? You want to get into the real thing?
Yeah,
Okay.
Give us a little taste.
We'll give a little cliffhanger. Well, hold on.
Put some on the
Let
plane.
let
and
me
you
let
talk.
me do the setup here. Let me
Yeah,
do
go
the
on.
setup.
Set it up.
So it had reached a point here on July 7th, 2016. I
Okay.
was out filming a protest. This was in response to the
Okay.
Philando Castile and Alton Sterling
Right.
shootings.
Right.
I'm out there filming, and I'm just in the crowd. I'm not there to argue with people. I'm standing there, you know, my camera's on a monopod. The thing had started at Pioneer Square. They marched around the streets a little bit and ended up on the steps of the Justice Center.
Okay.
Strangely enough, not a single uniformed police officer anywhere. There were hundreds of people on the street. The police felt that they didn't need to have a response, which I felt was a little weird during that whole thing. So I'm just standing there minding my own business, and then things got pretty scary. And Mr. Producer, if you want to roll Carenza attacks Strickland on the video there.
There we go. That's a piece of meat.
This
Now, what is this? What describe that?
this is my first person video.
I'm not a racist, dude. Get the fuck out of here. Don't put your hands. Get out of here. Don't put your hands on me. Get out of here, man. Don't put your hands on me. Do not put your hands on me. Do not put your hands on me. What the fuck you gonna do?
Now, what groups is this? What groups? We're talking over
It's
this.
a pretty active video.
Keep talking.
So are we live audio-wise over there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I'm standing there, and these guys in their masks over their faces, they're carrying their flagpoles.
That's McElway. I saw McElway there.
Get the hell back.
Young McKelway, that attorney.
Yeah, Greg McCollum, yeah.
Greg. Now, who's on the other side now? This thing?
So yeah, I'm just standing there filming, and I look off to the side there, and these guys are coming straight for me. They're led by a guy named Benjamin Carenza, who he's literally twice my size. He literally weighs 400 pounds.
Oh.
You know, the mob of these guys, they got their masks over their faces. They're carrying their anarchist flagpoles, which I personally have seen used as weapons.
And this downtown.
Yeah,
Portland.
this is downtown. Not a single uniformed police officer to be seen. So these guys, again, they don't like me because I film what actually happens at these protests. When people get violent, when they attack people, when they destroy property. I'm there filming it and I post it. So they make a beeline straight for me. They surround me. Then Carenza starts pushing and shoving me. Get the F out of here. Get the F out of here. All those bleeps you heard on that video where I had to censor those out. To make it airworthy for broadcast.
For YouTube, yeah.
You know, and so they start pushing and shoving me, and I'm like, hey, don't put your hands on me. Don't put your hands on me. They're screaming at me that I'm some kind of racist. I have no idea where they get that from. You've known me for years. Have I ever said or done anything racist?
You're just a journalist.
If I were racist, I wouldn't be on your show.
That's for sure. You know that.
I wouldn't have helped out on your campaigns.
That's right.
You know?
That's right.
So I start retreating right away because I don't want any trouble from these guys.
Right.
I'm outnumbered. These guys obviously mean business. You know, so I start backing away. More people come running into the scene. I flip my monopod upside down in case they're going to try to, you know, attack me again, or hit me with their flagpoles, so I can at least, defend myself with my monopod and whatnot. All these people, the situation is so chaotic. People are rushing in and out. It's very dynamic, and I'm backing away the entire time. I'm on the retreat. And it reaches a point where I've been backing up down the whole block here, and another guy is circling around my back here. And so my attention, the bulk of the mob is over this way. So the bulk of my attention is diverted to my right. And I happen to catch out of the corner of my eye Carenza, the really large guy, who, by the way, has a very lengthy criminal history. He's been in and out of federal prison 3 times. So he starts coming up now on my blind side. The big guy, who's literally twice my size, who started the fight, who was the primary one engaging in the assaultive behavior, who ignored my commands to leave me alone, is now coming up on my blind side. At that point, I had every reason to believe that Carenza and these other people, in a mob mentality, all riled up, were just seconds away from pummeling me into the pavement, robbing me of my computer gear that I had in my backpack, robbing me of my camera stuff, which I had personally experienced just 16 months beforehand. Wow. So I felt like I had no choice but to draw my firearm at that point and say, all right, everybody get back. Get back.
And you were
I'm
registered.
very thankful. And I was a licensed concealed carry holder. I've been through the training.
30 seconds.
And so I draw. Fortunately, everybody stopped. I reholstered, continued retreating. I was the one arrested. I was the one charged with crimes. I was the one eventually found guilty. And we're going to be getting more into
There
this
you go.
over
That's
the next
right.
few
That's
weeks
right.
here.
You got a piece of the meat. We'll see you. We'll see you the next time around.
Right.
We'll make the announcement. Be on OregonVoters.